No, no, you're good.
So I'm getting ready to start the stream right now. Leo's going to tell me when we are live.
Here we go. Celeste just entered the room. Let's refresh the live stream. I don't think yet. Not yet. We got less than a
Oh,
minute.
then we can start. If she's here, that's the beginning.
There you go. Yeah, we got 45 seconds.
All right.
That was weird. I totally hit admit, but it looks like it didn't admit.
They're working for you?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Celeste's having internet problems. Maybe that was it.
Could
Here we go. We're live.
So, are some successes just mad geniuses, or did they just Forrest Gump their way into it? And can you really dumpster dive to build a prototype? And do we now have Terminator robots for bugs? Well, these and other issues were questions we're going to be talking about tonight. And your May edition, welcome to Inventor Friday. I'm Don Skaggs, your host. With me tonight is the one and only Leo York. Get ready, drum roll, please. That really is Leo. I promise we've not replaced him with a robot. So Leo, tell everybody who you are, what you do.
Hey, everybody. I'm a copywriter and VP of Inventors Network Kentucky, right here in Lexington. Good to be here.
All right. All right. Also with me tonight is Kirk Sanberger, returning guest. All right.
Hi, all.
Hey, Kirk, tell everybody who you are, what you have, what you're all about.
Sure. Co-founder of MiniGrip, the portable twist top opener, and got a new larger one now, industrial grade. So
Very cool.
happy to be here.
So industrial grade will do how big of a container?
Oh, it'll do about a 5-inch jar, which is pretty big. So bigger than mason jars. Big,
Wow.
Restaurant pickle jars, whatnot.
Industrial strength mini grip. I love it. I love it. Also with me tonight is Drew Sutton. Drew, tell us about who you are and what you have, what you're all about.
Yeah, so I have this box called the Black Investing Box, which teaches kids about investing and gets them excited about savings, which if you can do that with a 5 to 10-year-old, I think that's pretty special. And then my day job is I do business consulting.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, let's see. This is the part where I need to share my screen. And we're going to talk about a couple of interesting things. But first, I want to talk about a new sponsor that we have tonight. Actually, our new sponsor is kind of an old sponsor. It's and as you know, a lot of times these are our own folks, our own inventors, our own entrepreneurs, and this comes again from our inventor Bennett Gatto. And if I can figure out how to share my screen,
Green button.
green button, there we go. All right, can everybody see my screen? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All righty. Now, clicking on extra stuff. Wait, no, I'm not on the right one. Okay, guys, sorry about that. Technical difficulties once again. Imagine that. And I don't see. Okay, hang on.
No worries.
We're almost there. There we go. Now I've got it. Now we're there. All right. Our new sponsor is Balance Briefs. So you're probably asking yourself, how in the world can a pair of briefs keep you on your feet and off the floor? Well, Bennett Gatto, Dr. Bennett Gatto, as I like to call him, physical therapist, inventor, entrepreneur, he came up with this really, really cool product. And this is actually one of his patients. And this is kind of a before and after video that just really kind of shows the difference. So that's him before he was using balance briefs, and his gait was too close together. And guess what? When you're walking with your feet too close together, and you forget, you kind of walk like the habit you've gotten into, you can trip and fall. Well, with the balance briefs, you keep your feet further apart, and it gives you what he calls a wider stance, a safer way to stand and walk. And it was just amazing. So now he has them for sale. So if you are interested in this, or you know someone who's, and actually that's been it right there, 60% less falls is what I'm seeing with my patients wearing balance briefs. So we've got them in men's, women's, we've got them all kinds. This is one of our own. So if you know someone who needs some help with this, just go on down to balancebriefs.com and you can get yours today. And actually they're 25% off. Tell them the Inventors Network sent you. All right. And with that, also, I want to share my screen once more, and then we're going to talk a little bit. Also, we want to check out our website, kyinventors.org. If you are not on our website, if you're not signed up for stuff, then you need to get on there and do that. We've got all kinds of really cool things. We have regular meetings. If you're watching us on YouTube, hey, we do a lot of really cool things outside of the YouTube show that we do. We have all kinds of meetings and workshops, and just go to our website. We've also got really cool inventor swag. Inventor swag you can't get anywhere else, by the way. And online courses. We have replays for meetings. All that's on our website at kyinventors.org. So with that, I'm going to move on to one of our first topics here. And this was kind of an interesting, we're going to talk about some inventions in history. And so May 8th, I'm going to take you back to May 8th, 1886. And that is the world's first Coca-Cola was served. And that's not him at all. There we go. So May 8th is the very first Coca-Cola. Now, you may not know it, but Coca-Cola was served at Jacob's Pharmacy in Atlanta, and was the creation of Dr. John Pemberton as a tonic for common ailments. And it actually started out as an alcoholic beverage and billed as a nerve tonic, cure for headaches. So it was kind of a, I don't know, health product maybe?
Snake oil.
Snake oil health product. So
Wine and Coke, basically.
yeah. And I thought this was really interesting. So the company was originally called the Pemberton Chemical Company. Yeah. It was later renamed Coca-Cola. So I always thought that was kind of funny, because you think about it, Pemberton Chemical makes Coca-Cola. It doesn't really
not wouldn't fly today, that's for sure.
No. So what do you all think? Do you all think what do you think so many products, because it really started out as a flop. That was the big thing about this, is it was a flop and it didn't do too well, and then it got picked up and took off, and it originally had cocaine in it. I guess that probably helped with sales. So then it was removed later, obviously. But what do you think? Sometimes a product can be a flop and then sometimes take off. They make one little change sometimes.
I think a lot of it really adds up to two things. Execution, because sometimes the person who's creative isn't as good at executing on it. And in this case, that kind of happened. And then another reason is just saturation. And I won't bore anybody with the Marlboro Man story, because I think I've said it too many times. It's a great example of how new things we're very averse to. And once it hits a certain level of saturation, once there's enough early adopters who used it, then it becomes more mainstream, and then it takes off. And it explains sleeper hits. Like, everybody loved during its heyday the Austin Powers, but it was terrible when it went to theaters. It wasn't until it was on DVD that people started watching it and imitating it, and it kind of spread. And I think that's the difference, is whether it has hit saturation or not, and whether the person who came up with it executes it properly. That's my take.
Didn't there a lot of movies like that though?
Sleeper hits, tons of them. Yeah.
Wow.
And cult hits. Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life was a was a flop and for a few years.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, yeah,
Now it's part of the
absolutely.
zeitgeist. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Have you guys seen the new movie coming out called, it's about Post and Kellogg's?
I've got it on my list, unfrosted.
I
Yeah.
think, thank you.
We'll let you know if it's inventor worthy for an inventor night. at the
I'm
movies.
keen on it. Yeah, we'll see.
I saw it.
Looking forward. Yeah.
Oh,
Verdict?
and by the way, to our Zoom folks, if you do have a
Seinfeld.
question or a comment,
Yeah.
please put it in the chat. We're gonna kind of keep this part of the program just to the folks in the room, so we can all kind of talk about it. But what do you think, Kurt? What do you think changed Coke, or what do you think the
For
secret is?
Coke, it makes me wonder, what little pivots did they introduce? And it seems like instead of flopping and letting it flop, they made little tweaks or changes. So little pivots, kind of listening to the customer or going with what's working. Because it certainly has changed. I mean, if it had alcohol and
They actually had
Coke
to
in
take
it,
the alcohol out because they got arrested for it.
yeah. So they had some success and then maybe it started to peter out and then they figured out what was working and just kept going with what's working, or listening to the customer might be another way to say
That
it.
could be. I mean, there's so many times where I'll see a product flop and it'll just be because the inventor, the entrepreneur was like, this is the way it has to be. I know it. I saw it in my dreams. And they're not listening to the customer saying, no, I don't like it this way. If you made it this other way, I'd really like it.
And I don't know what it is, but I really like Coke from McDonald's. I think they put the extra syrup in there and the carbonation and
There is something to that. I actually read something about that. It's funny that you say that because my wife, she's a big Diet Coke from McDonald's. God love her. She actually looked up because she said the same thing you just did. It tastes different. It's different somehow. It's not like these other. And there's actually some special things they do that are proprietary to the McDonald's, so it has that one taste to keep those customers. So apparently it's working.
like it.
What do you think, Drew?
Well, unfortunately, I wish I knew the answer better because then I would launch things better the first time.
We only had a time machine, right?
Right? But no, I think it speaks to all of our, we get jazzed, all of us as inventors, we get jazzed because we have this one problem we're trying to solve. And we're like, oh no, this will be perfect for this, but it's better over here. So like what you described is alcoholic, it had cocaine in it. I think the cocaine probably helped the adoption. It's not the point.
That's right.
It was the returning customers. Right? But I think that like the way we know Coke today, it's a mass market thing. Everybody's taking it not for health, we're taking it for enjoyment.
Yep.
Whereas it was originally marketed for health. And so the lanes you run something down and the profit margins that you're trying to pull from something, like you market a mass market thing way different than you market something very niche or very high end. And so I think that probably has something to do with it is I've seen a lot of people have success with giving something away for free and then selling the next purchase. I mean, obviously there's the dope dealers, but seriously, giving something away for free and then working up the value chain or make like the kangaroo wine. There's an Aussie wine, I think, has a kangaroo on the bottle. There's some good articles about it, and they brought table wine to $5 a bottle as opposed to 30 or 50. So you're selling a $30 or $50 bottle. It's great for the sell, but you're selling one a month. Whereas Aussie was able to sell them as a dinner drink. And for kind of not even your upper tier managers, just everybody can now have wine at dinner. And so as you're looking at your product, I think you have to say, can I pull the premium? And is that premium so large that it makes up for it? Or is this a mass,
Nice.
Yeah.
When you said Aussie wine, I thought you were going to talk about the one with the talking labels.
No,
Have you not heard? Oh, that's
It's augmented reality wine.
yeah.
Oh,
Trippy
I
stuff.
can't remember. You don't remember what
13 crimes.
13 crimes. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Each different wine is named after a different criminal. And so you go and you could look at it through your phone, it's augmented reality, and the label will be animated and they will tell you about the crime. That is one of the 13 crimes.
Oh, that's
The
cool.
label
Yeah,
will
it's
be
like
there,
a little mug shop on the bottle, 18th or 19th century, I guess,
Right.
mug shot
Yeah.
on the bottle. And it's,
That's great.
you aim your phone at it and then it like comes to life and they start talking about
Yeah.
their story. And it was,
That's crazy.
it was, I
Reality
don't know.
marketing, man, it's gonna take off. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what else they do with that, because there could be, I
It
mean.
sounds
you
like
could go-
liquid death, like liquid death water. It
Yeah.
sounds close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Can I pull on the price point thing for just a second?
Yeah.
So, this kind of, as we were discussing, it kind of hit me, is that some things you almost have to sell for a couple of bucks or a buck or free, right?
Mhm.
Other things, like nobody would buy a car for $1,000, right? Like I have a
Right.
daughter, she turned 16. I'm looking for an old car, like we just bought an old car for her, right? And I was stunned what cars go, like used cars go for. In my mind, I was like, it's like a $4,000 car. I wouldn't have even considered a $3,000 car strictly on price. Like maybe it was a good one. And so the pricing point, a couple things on price. One, the pricing point conveys value at that upper echelon, like a
Mhm.
doctor that costs $10. Like anybody have
A
any
little worried about
Right.
that.
A little sketchy, right?
Yeah.
Right, sketchy. Right.
But then similarly, nobody's going to buy a $50 soda, right?
Yeah.
So understanding, and then there's another really funny one at the very tails. I don't know if you read any of Nassim Taleb's work, but he talks about the long tails of things, like on a bell curve.
Mhm.
Like over here in the tails, like buying, everybody will tell you mathematically buying a lottery ticket, it's bad math, right?
Oh,
Like
sure.
that's just bad math. Except that for $1 or $5, which is throwaway money. It's kind of emotionally to us, it's zero money.
Right.
I could have a chance at 30 billion. And for $2, I get no chance at 30 billion. So you go like there's a digital switch in which, oh, this works. So like people are willing to buy Starbucks for $5 for an 8 ounce, but they'll complain about gas for $3 a gallon.
Right.
That's a fair point.
Right? But that's because they're not buying 10 gallons of Starbucks
Well,
at that rate.
that's
So as you're pricing your products, you have to think, how much am I asking them to buy? There's this like trivial like throwaway amount, which
$20.
$20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For most things.
And as you get to different, I've had the privilege of being in rooms with different economic echelons,
Mhm.
let's say. There are echelons where 1,000 or 10,000 is throwaway money,
Sure.
right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Oh,
have
yeah.
Starbucks,
Mhm.
right? So for some, and then I know I've been in other echelons where $1 a day is your meals, right?
Yeah.
So playing with price and being very conscious of who your target audience is, I think answers some of that question.
Yeah,
Chris.
and I think that circled right back to, if you don't know who your customer is, you don't know anything, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you know about your product and all that, but doesn't matter, because customer is the one that's going to give you money for solving their problem or making them happy or.
So the government is actually selling services to the government is interesting. The government, I had a friend, we're going to do $50,000 as a pilot program with this one. I'm trying to keep everything vague, but there was a friend of mine was writing the contract, $50,000 to this company. The boss said, we can't write them a $50,000 contract. We need to write them a $500,000 contract because it's $30,000 worth of labor to write the contract. And
Oh my
that's
gosh.
probably a fair statement when
Sure.
it comes to government
Wow.
contracting. But the idea is sometimes, or in venture capital, it's similar. You go to venture capital and you're like, oh, I need $75,000 because you've really done the jot and tittles, and they won't take you seriously because they're like, I don't want you to come back. I want to make the decision once. And if you can't think of how to spend $2 million, you don't have enough vision for me to give you 75. So
Mm.
Oh,
thresholds.
God,
There's
thresholds.
thresholds.
Yeah. That's funny. I've been working with one client recently that tried to get into VA, which, by the way, if you know anything, I can hook you up.
Oh, okay.
But I was talking to one of the purchasing agents at VA for VA medical centers. And he said, because they have like credit cards, and I remember this from my old business because we used to sell at VA medical centers, and we loved them because when they would send me a PO, they would give us a credit card. It's like, here you go, here's the money, and up front, And and the limit, I think back then when I was doing it was like 5,000, it's like $10,000 now. But when I was talking to this purchasing agent about it, he says, imagine if you will, a billionaire with a credit card. He said, that's the VA Medical Center. Because they got lots of money and they are willing to spend it on the stuff that will really solve their problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, another way that I've heard that is, this is for private money of that size, is private money doesn't pay for parking. So if you like give them an itemized bill and you're like, oh, it was $12.99 to park my car, they're like, just put another 1,000 in the larger, like, don't tell me how much you paid for parking. Like, I'm sure that you need to pay for parking, like, just tell me how much the number is and don't make me like fiddle through all the items. So anyway, the phrase I use is, we don't pay for parking here, like.
yeah.
And
Wow.
also, yeah, when you're selling your
Yeah.
stuff, sell it high enough that you don't have to care about parking.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next thing. But before I do, I completely forgot. The hardest working guy here tonight has not been introduced. And that's George. George, introduce yourself. Put yourself on camera and tell us all about you. George is keeping us
Hey.
on camera
I'm
tonight.
clicking the buttons, keeping the camera rolling around.
So thank you, George.
Yeah,
we
you're welcome.
We appreciate it. So, all right. Let's go on to the next thing here. And this next one is, I'm going to kind of title it, is this guy a mad genius or an 18th century Forrest Gump? So this is a story about a guy named Timothy Dexter. And Timothy was an interesting guy. And I'm gonna pull up his some information on him, but really I want there's a couple of guys that, well, there's one person that knows his bio really well, and I want Leo to talk a little bit about this because he well, go ahead,
Sure.
you can tell us better than I can.
Thanks. Yeah, Timothy Dexter is a fascinating guy, and like you really don't know because we weren't there whether this guy was brilliant or foolish and lucky. But pretty much people like to kind of troll him back during the Revolutionary War period, like, late 18th century. And they would give him these ideas, these tips, which, even now, like in business, people give people tips on, things you can do. So one person gave him a tip and he said, these bed warmers, people use to keep their beds warm, you should sell those in the Caribbean. And he said, that's a great idea. So he takes him to the Caribbean and he's trying to sell bed warmers in the Caribbean where it's hot. Well, lo and behold, they were perfect for stirring molasses. And molasses is like the main product, molasses and rum, which is kind of the same thing, except one's fermented and one's not in the Caribbean. It's like the cash crop there. So it was perfect for turning it because it's this thick sludge and the holes in it are just ideal. So he sold out. He made a lot of money. So he goes back home and once again, somebody trolls him and says, well, what they really need in the Caribbean is warm clothes. And so he goes down there with a bunch of warm clothes. What just so happens a Russian fleet is going to, I can't remember if it was Antarctica or the southern tip of Chile. Bottom line, polar area, very cold. And they had not stocked up on proper provisions. And here they are in the Caribbean wondering, well, how are we going to get some warm clothes? And lo and behold, there he is with a bunch of warm clothes. So he sells out again. And this just kept happening. He kept making these really asinine decisions that paid off tremendously. And ultimately, I think because he kind of understood what a lucky guy he was, in the latter years of his life, most of his money he spent on charitable good works just to kind of make the world better. So just a fantastic guy. You couldn't ask for better luck or you couldn't ask for better wisdom depending on what was really going on behind that guy's skull.
So what do you think, Leo? Was he a crazy guy or was he with lucky breaks or was he eccentrically savvy, super genius?
I've just from my own experience, I've not met a lot of lucky people, but I've met a lot of people who are smart enough to look dumb. So I'm more inclined to think it's the luck.
That's great. Oh, what's your take on it, Kirk?
I think I think there was there had to be some I don't think he was completely clueless, but I do think he hustled and he knew when to make a change or when to make a shift, like from one channel to another, like those two examples you gave. It seems like he made just the right shift at the right time. Was he also lucky? I mean, maybe he created his luck. I don't know.
He was definitely either just crazy or good at marketing because he was so eccentric. He wore these giant hats and he had this little dog. And, he just everything he did was very Willy Wonka before Roald Dahl came up with Willy Wonka.
Definitely eccentric.
Yeah.
Definitely eccentric.
What country was he from?
US, I think. I mean, he
Yeah.
got Lord in his name, but I think he was from like Massachusetts. So yeah.
But he titled himself Lord.
Yeah.
Lord
Yeah.
Dexter.
There you go.
Yeah, so the wiki says that he would pay kids. He would pay kids us like a couple of cents to call him Lord, and then he would he would bribe adults. He'd like take them out for food and drinks.
Just so they would.
Oh, wow.
Which brings into question, like, isn't that kind of what royalty does anyway?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
we all just agree to say you're the CEO. Like, I'm not saying that people aren't really respect, but also titles are kind of silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
cool guy though. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's see. I've got one more little history item here. So fast forward, May 24th.
can I talk about that?
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, and by the way, yeah, it's funny because Drew was reading about this guy in the pre-show prep. And I could tell immediately you were just like getting enthralled with this stuff. So
Yeah.
so this was all like fresh data for you. So I'm really interested on your take on this.
Yeah. So I think that as entrepreneurs, as inventors, we get wrapped up in the question of this one guy because we're one guy. But the truth is, I think part of his story is he had two boats. I don't have two boats. Like I don't even have two bass boats, right? I have a kayak. So I think so. He has two boats which he can send down to the Caribbean. In other words, he has a logistics fleet, right? And I think that we underplay Alex Ramosi talks about this. I think that we underplay the importance of being able to wait. So John Maxwell has a great story about a white horse that comes to this farm, and everybody says, "Oh, you're so lucky." And then the horse, his son's riding the horse. His son breaks his arm right during harvest time, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're so unlucky." But then there's a war, and so the king comes and he conscripts everybody, but not the farmer's son because he's got a broken arm. They're like, "Oh, you're so lucky." And the question is the horse lucky or not? And the answer is the horse just is. It's not lucky, you're not lucky. But for us, we live not in a giant probability field. We live in a single point in time. And the length of time that we can wait to make our thing, to market it to a large enough people, to get it to take off, to catch fire, to do your saturation, it's timeline. I think that we hurry and we hustle and we're like, oh, I got to make this thing happen in a week and a half. And then we're unlucky. Well, no, we're not unlucky. We just didn't have the time horizon to become lucky. And so this guy, he marries a rich lady and he has two boats and he's had a couple of wins under his belt. But we're reading this in history, like all of history is being compressed into a Wikipedia article. Or like, this guy is so lucky. Maybe he just had the time horizon to wait for the Siberian fleet to come in and sell the winter socks. So you don't have to be unlucky today. If you can wait until tomorrow.
Excellent.
Time your
I
luck.
like that.
Yeah.
Time your luck.
And then write a heck of a story, right?
That'd make a great hashtag. Time your luck.
Make a good book title.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Maybe that's what he did.
Time your luck.
Yeah.
Everybody, Drew Sutton's next book. Time your luck.
No, so I have a phrase I tell everybody. It's bad luck to be superstitious. That's
I like that.
That's great.
Oh, all right. Well, let's fast forward a little to May 24th, 1982. And what happened on that date was increased penalties for tracking in counterfeit labels for certain works and criminal infringement on those works, right under the Copyright Act in 1982. And let me find the story on this. It's pretty interesting. So, I know it's in here somewhere, but yeah, I guess this kind of begs the question about copyrights, because we're always seeing inventors are probably the most paranoid people that we ever work with. And it's like, I'm afraid somebody's going to steal my idea. And the funny thing is when you're not selling a lot of whatever it is, usually nobody cares. And now when you're selling a lot, then yeah, that's different. But you do get knocked off if you get popular. So I'm just wondering if this could ever be used as a criminal infringement. And this kind of relates to another story that we were talking about in an earlier show where someone was trying to use the RICO Act and I think it was immersed in some of the writing of this, and all this is legalese, and I won't go through it all, but basically what they're saying is that they're really just wanting to have penalties for trafficking counterfeit labels. And I have seen some of this lately where and I don't know what department it is, might be Department of Commerce, or you might actually know this, I don't know. But will actually crack down on copycat labels. So, and this is usually applicable to like clothing knockoffs. Think of a high-end brand of clothing.
Rolex,
Coach, exactly.
The guys in New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
Lorex and Soch,
Yeah. So, yeah. And I just wonder if this could be used I wonder if there's any way this could be used for tougher acts on copycats. Because that's what we'll see a lot. And the funny thing is recently I've seen some people will, when you put something on Amazon, well, I'll tell you a great recent one that I saw. So there's this guy that has a YouTube channel and he does, I think it's called Unnecessary Invention.
Oh, that guy's awesome.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about then. All right, great. So it's like these just most absurd, okay, nobody would want one of these in a million years. This is just stupid, but I made it anyway kind of invention. And he'll build it, he'll prototype it, and then he'll show it on his YouTube channel. He is now getting Chinese knockoffs of the parodied products he put on there. That's great.
Yes, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
amazing.
So anyway, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think is there something to this, or could this be something used? Maybe any kind of way you could go after somebody. Yeah, the one of the things that I've always said is I wish there was a patent police, but there is no patent police. Somebody infringes you just got to sue them. And so, could this be something to kind of crack down on the bad guys?
I definitely think having a diverse IP portfolio is better rather than worse. Obviously, you don't want to break the bank, and everybody's going to be different, like what their need to invest in that. But copyright is kind of like the most unsung of the three. Everybody talks about patents. Some people talk about trademarks. Copyright you almost never hear about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's worth exploring.
And I kind of wonder too, how do they copyright labels?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also the simplest and like the cheapest. Last time I checked, it was like $110 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And pretty much what you do, because I have copyrighted stuff before, and I'm a copywriter, but that's totally different.
Spelled different too, right?
Yeah, exactly, spelled different. But it's like absurdly easy. Like you basically upload the document you want to copyright. They look over it to make sure that it is unique, and you didn't just put, Moby Dick in a PDF and submit it. Then you pay them, and that's kind of it. They give you a little certificate, and it's like you've got a copyright now. So it's the easiest of the three by a pretty wide margin.
Interesting. Yeah, if somebody could just copyright their inventions, that easily.
Yeah. Only if you write it.
Yeah. I saw an article, it was not an article, it was a video. And this guy was talking about the fact that he used AI to run through all the possible combinations of 4 notes in music and rhythms,
Oh
and he just copyrighted all of them.
my.
Oh,
And
goodness.
then he gave it out as domain.
Oh, okay. I was about to
Oh.
say, I was like, this is a super villain story, but it's actually a hero.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I think that speaks to the purpose of copyright is for somebody who works on something, um, some classic piece of literature, they pour their whole heart and soul into it for years.
Mhm.
And it is legitimate good for society and we should protect it, right? And then there's, unnecessary inventions, which is clearly comedy. Like, I don't know that we really need to protect that, right?
Right.
So I had a friend that lived in China for a while, and he said that in China there are high rises where you can get your design done, you can get your 3D print done, you can get your Arduino work done, you can get your production, your molds, like in one building, you can get the whole shtick done, and you can be
Wow.
prototyped by the end of the week.
Wow.
And another person said to me recently, they said, if you are one in a million, and I think we all kind of, whether or not we say it out loud or not, I think we're all believe it, we're one in a million. He goes, there's 3,000 people just like you in China right
Yeah, well.
now, right? Which speaks to the humility of, if you're humble, you're looking at your customer and you're saying, what do you need? And how can I get it to you? Whereas if if the hubris is really what's driving you more, you're like, oh, look at me and this great idea I had.
Mhm.
But in China, they can run from great idea. We've all had this idea that was, we've had this for 10 years or whatever, which is actually ironic. I've had this box for 10 years. So, but in China, the means of production, from idea to conception for a reasonable price, you can get it done fast. And so as entrepreneurs, I think as inventors, it's fun, but as entrepreneurs, we got to say, let's not worry about speed, or let's not worry about protection and claiming my stick in the ground, because there's 3,000 just like me sticking sticks in the ground.
Yep.
Let's get velocity to market and let's beat them to market. Let's make the sales. Let's be the obvious,
Agreed.
right?
Yep.
And
First to
that is
market.
more
Yeah.
valuable than I was helping a friend who has a company, and two of our customers went bankrupt. And if you have never had the pleasure of going through a bankruptcy, that is a fantastic life. So we paid a guy $500 an hour to review the document that we sent him and then submit it. So $4,000 later, we still didn't get our money back. And if you think about, I don't know how much, I think you were selling these for, how much you're selling these for?
Yeah, like $8 each.
So 8.
Yeah.
That's a lot of these, ignoring profit and revenue. That's a lot of these to pay a lawyer. And
Oh, of course.
I'd rather pay every day of the week. I'd rather pay a marketing firm than a lawyer,
Yeah.
because that'll give me velocity. Whereas lawyer is the definition of anchor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had a product, with a very, very boring name called formaldehyde neutralizing dry mats. And but they were all the rage in pathology labs
Right.
around the country. And so naturally we had knockoffs. And it's funny, we were a scrappy little company started, out of a farmhouse in Eastern Kentucky. And I know Leo's probably glossing over at this point.
No worries, no
About a
worries.
million times. But so we started getting copied. I mean, I walk into a trade show and it's funny. It was like, okay, it's got a different name, but it's like they've even took my literature and that like just took the words and pictures and moved them around. And you're like horrified and enraged and flattered all at the same time when you walk in and see that. But here was how we always kept the market, was we always stayed one step ahead of them. I kind of finally came to the conclusion that the copycats were never coming up with original ideas. That's why otherwise they wouldn't be copying me. And so while they were working on our last year's product, we were already on next year's product. So we had the new and improved. And it's funny, the bigger the place, the more stupid decisions they would make. So we had this product that would actually neutralize formaldehyde when you put formaldehyde soak specimens on it. Well, that was kind of how it worked. So they decided to put a plastic back on theirs. So it didn't absorb anything. And then they turned around and said, oh, well, we got a lot of customer complaints for that for some crazy reason. And so let's poke holes in the plastic now and see if that works. Well, it really didn't work either. So, I mean, it was kind of funny because, $4 billion multinational corporations were trying to copy a little old us. and just doing such a poor job of it, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So, but I think you're right. I think it's getting to the market, first to market, and just always staying one step ahead. Because that's the superpower of the inventor is they've got the creativity of, okay, well, we've been selling this a year. They're just starting to copy us. What we've learned all this stuff in this year on how to improve it. So we're going to come out with the next item
So
with the big mini grip. So
The next iteration.
yes, the next iteration.
So real quick, funny story, which is similar to that, then I want to hear your thoughts on this. I worked at a helicopter company. If you do the math and you go to my LinkedIn, you can figure it out, but we'll just leave it off for now. So the helicopter rotor system is a very complicated piece of equipment. And we made those out of composites for a while. We still kind of make them out of composites. And there were shapes. Shapes are extremely important in that environment. We partnered with a Asian country and they came over and they like worked with us or whatever. One day we left them in an office, which had one of our failed experiments on it.
Oh, this is a good strategy.
It's really, really funny. So,
Oh, I'm loving this already.
so the guy's name was Jim. So Jim left the office and then, we kind of heard some noise and we kind of like peered over the wall and the guy had taken the old rotor system down off the wall and he had multiple pieces of graph paper and he was tracing the design, but it was a design that we knew was broken.
Right.
Right. And so we intentionally got a cup of coffee.
You're talking about
We were like, we came back in there and he was like, in his little thing and the back on the wall, like we never said anything about it.
It's like, go for it, dude.
And about a year and a half later, they
Guys,
flew a
insomnia
prototype.
and worked security a bunch of years, so it'll be fine.
Sorry.
So about a year and a half later, they flew a prototype. They like showed it off at a show, and then they never flew it again.
Oh, I love that.
At any rate,
So the moral of the story is take your failures to get them.
your customer.
Yeah, yeah.
your
Get them
competitor.
a copy of
There's
your
a
failure.
word for that where you like you have a spy and they don't know
Industrial.
they're a spy, so you give them false information.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, like, anyway, I heard the story secondhand, so is it really true? 100% is true. But do I know? I mean, I could
Right.
trust Michael.
That is wild.
That's great.
That is.
Deal.
All right.
What's your take on?
Oh, yeah, what do you?
Yeah, yeah.
I would just say, of the three, copyrights, trademarks, patents, I think copyrights, as easy as Leo said it is to get, I think it's probably also easier to enforce. It might not cost as much. And then I think trademarks might be the next easiest. And then I think patents is the hardest and the most expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of work. Also with patents, you kind of have whack-a-mole. Like if you stop someone from knocking off your patent, as soon as you do that, if they come up as another company, you have to do it again. So maybe you have to do that for copyrights too, but I think it's easier. I think it's easier to prove, it's more concrete. And so if you can, I think that's attractive.
Yeah.
I think even a design trademark might be easy. Although it's easier to get around, I think it might be more attractive and maybe cheaper and easier to enforce.
Yeah.
So
And all three, the longer you have them, and you have successful suits, the more powerful it gets. So that's just a little thing to also add to that.
Yeah, we and for years I always called patent pending, when you put patent pending on a product, that scary beware of dog sign. Because maybe you have a dog inside the house, maybe you don't, but you're not wanting them to break in, so you just put the beware of dog sign out in the yard. And so at one point, and I forget, somebody touched on this one time or sort of made me think about this, and I started putting on all of my literature. All products from US Biotech are fully protected under patent and trademark law. I just wanted to make it as big and scary sounding as I possibly could. But I think that kind of lends to your strategy of, if you file a provisional patent and, see if you've got something. And if it looks like, you can patent it, then patent it, but don't rely on that as the end all. You want to have a strategy of, if you have a good trademark and you're first to market and that trademark is recognized, then that actually might have a lot more power. I mean, their patents on the Levi jeans ran out a long time ago. But their trademarks are still going.
There you go. That's it. Right there.
So there's a whole subculture in patenting. I have a couple of patents on helicopters, and they're not, you can't build any of my helicopter patents. They're all negative patents that says I have patented this way to make a helicopter blade. Doesn't mean you can make one because I don't necessarily own all of the pieces that make that work. So a lot of when you get into the corporate world of patenting, it's a lot of like if like Amazon and Facebook and Google and Apple are all suing each other constantly. And it's more, they're just like in a Mexican standoff where they're putting guns at each other's faces and they're like, okay, now we can't. So nobody actually expects to settle seriously. It's just more like, hey, we all agree that we're pointing guns at each other, right? Okay.
Peace through mutual bankruptcy.
Yeah. So then there's this funny group of folks called patent trolls, as we refer to as. And so like if you have your formaldehyde thing plate, and like that's the core of your business, and I can find the person that's patented formaldehyde, I can take the formaldehyde patent, buy it, it's mine now, it's a transferable piece of paper, and I can now sue you for all of the formaldehyde you've ever sold because I now own the underlying patent. that
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
relying on. So a patent, I think that when I was younger, I was like, oh, patents mean that I can, no, patents don't mean nothing. Patents mean everybody else can't. And so now everybody's just like, oh, you can't do this, you can't. And we've kind of gotten to this spot in the patent world, like in the intellectual space where there's not a whole lot of spot to step without stepping on something. And so, but if you want to be a patent troll, there's good money to be, it's just exactly like land manning where you're like getting oil. You find somebody's, you buy the oil rights, the rights underneath, and then you go sue the big company that has the big money. It's called patent trolling. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Depending on which day, I'm like, that's a horrible thing. And I'm like, oh, like stick it to that's a thing.
Oh, interesting. So, well, let's move on to some fast forward to the present day and talk about some inventions and business items in the news. So this first one here is a game-changing discovery that turns crustacean shells. I'm not going to say that right, am I? Crustacean shells into plastic.
Yep.
So let's take a look at this. So game-changing discovery inside crustacean shells that could revolutionize plastic. We're hoping to turn this trash into treasure. So they found a way to extract an organic polymer known as chitin. Is that right? Chitin. From crustacean cells without harsh chemicals. And Leo, I think you know a good bit about this.
Yeah, this is like something I've been waiting for, like as a technology. Because yeah, chitin is, so we're made of keratin. That's what our skin is made out of. And you might think, well, keratin's not very strong then because it's like skin. But the horns of cows are also made out of keratin. So it just depends on how much. Well, similarly, there's two other structural compounds in nature that really are well known. And the other one would be cellulose. And it's the same thing. A daffodil stem is made out of cellulose and it's really pliable, but an oak tree is made out of cellulose. Well, chitin is found in mushrooms and invertebrates. And I don't actually know why they don't use some mushrooms as well as a way to source for chitin, but you're not going to find it in very, very high amounts in, like, say, insects. You could probably farm them for it, but crustaceans makes perfect sense because they got these really hard shells, which means it's a lot of chitin, kind of like the horns of a cow has a lot of keratin. And it just happens to have a structural similarity enough that you could make a bioplastic out of it. And that bioplastic could break down. And so to me, it's going to get rid of the possibility of having too much, plastic waste. And it could also be a solution for microplastics. So I'm really excited about it. And it's not like we're actively fishing for these crustaceans just for that. It's a byproduct that normally is just going to get thrown in some garden somewhere. And instead it's being used to make stuff. So it's a win-win for everybody, including nature.
So they're an entree at the Red Lobster on a Tuesday.
There you
Thursday
go.
they become a plastic object.
Exactly. Yeah, trippy stuff.
Oh, so what do you think? Is this kind of an opportunity, challenge, turning trash into treasures or
I think if they
for
can
that?
get enough volume, that it's a
Mhm.
great idea. I think it's attractive even for, like, all the fast food, all the plastics and everything you consume. If that's petroleum based, it's not going anywhere. But if it's bio based, I think that's attractive. So can they get enough volume, or is there a niche where that chitin plastic does well or performs well?
Yeah.
So if they can't get a high enough volume, they can still use it, and yet it'll degrade and be useful. Who knows, BBs or something.
Yeah,
Again, I'm surprised they've not tried it, as far as I know, with mushrooms. Because, unlike crabs where you have to go out and fish or purchase them, in other words, you can grow mushrooms anywhere. Like any country could produce their own chitin just by cultivating mushrooms. And some of them have a lot of chitin. Like, it's the one they literally found like a frozen guy, like Otzi the Iceman or
Oh, yeah.
whatever. But he literally in his little satchel that he had
Shroom?
yeah, he had horseshoe fungus, I think it's called. It's a mushroom, but it's really chitinous. And he had it literally as a fire starter. Like you could literally use it as tinder because it's got so much chitin in it. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that was a thought I had, Kirk, is supply and demand. Would there be enough of this material to take care of our, a certain amount of our plastic needs? Or, like you said, maybe a niche. Maybe it's like, okay, it's best used for this, and this kind of evens it out a
Yeah.
little bit, maybe.
And there's gonna be some
It's-
crab factories and stuff, so you'll have some.
Yeah.
It's also the second most common polysaccharide in nature. Like literally there's cellulose, which is, these buildings mostly made out of cellulose from wood. And then there's chitin. It's everywhere as far as
Okay.
that goes. The question is, how do you get it without like, making some beetle extinct or whatever? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Whenever I hear about a new green technology, I always say, let's first get China and India to stop dumping
Sure.
plastic.
Well, that
Like-
might be helpful. It's
So,
a nice
like-
first step.
Like I enjoy a good guilt trip as much as the next guy. I'm familiar. But they are literally, there's 5 times as many people in China as
Okay.
there are in the US. And we are the gold standard for the world in terms
Yeah.
of renewables and stuff.
We really are.
So now, my statement there is, before I take any more guilt on my shoulders for the plastic straws that I used to kill turtles with, let's get the real polluters and let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Right? Let's put some. And by the way, we're all complicit because
Mhm.
everything that we buy, like
It's
my
from
cell
there,
phone, was
yeah.
made in China. So it's not like it's not even
Right.
their problem. It's my problem that I've
Yeah.
hidden. Right. I put
Mhm.
enough supply chain in between. So, which then brings up my second point is, like it said cost effective. Well, everything is cost effective in green as long as you draw the circle around the cost effective green part in the right
Mhm.
spot. Like
Yep.
lithium batteries are amazing as long as you don't talk about making them, mining them, disposing of them, and putting them in the landfill.
Right.
They're way worse.
Oh,
Same
yeah.
thing for windmills. And that's not even considering the energy to make them, like to manufacture them. That's the windmills or the batteries. So, I mean, if you've never looked at the lithium battery mining, it's literal modern day slavery. It's not a joke.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
we want to talk
It
about,
makes the blood diamond trade kind of look like, Willy
That-
Wonka.
that's what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
So do I believe that bios works? Sure. The underlying reason that we want to go that way is an altruistic green view. So let's talk about much more. I'm a 80-20 guy. Like, let's talk about the 20 things that we're doing
Mhm.
that's killing
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
And I don't feel like plastic, crab plastics here. The other thing, so ignoring morality, crab plastic has a supply chain problem, I think. You got to kill a lot of crabs. Now,
That's what I
granted,
was
they're already
wondering.
being,
How many
Right.
crabs would it take?
like 50 gallons of crude oil goes in a barrel.
Yeah,
And I don't know the ratio. Now, maybe it works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It did say, going on the article, it said cost effective. So
Mhm.
I'm assuming that that's not marketing speech and that they drew the circle around the entire supply chain. In that case, I'm all for it. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned marketing speech, I immediately thought of something I just heard this week for the first time. It was an old saying. They said if you torture data long enough, it'll confess to anything.
I like that.
Yes. Yes, that is a data guy. I love that. Because I also have to present to my boss, right?
Right, yeah. So yeah, no, and then you're right, it's supply and demand. It's like, can we, if you could grow enough crabs or grow enough mushrooms, which I kind of like that idea better. Kind of with Leo on that. Then yeah, well, it's just like with cars. They say, okay, I want a green car and all, and I'm saying, okay, great. Let's get something that competes well with what we're using now.
Yes.
And because that's what people buy. They won't buy out of guilt. They'll buy out of,
Yeah.
can I save money and will this be, will this work better, cheaper, faster?
Yeah.
So
And a lot of it is, and I'm not trying to get political, but a lot of people want to virtue signal about a problem, but they don't really want a solution. Because I've found a lot of people, well, we need this and we need that, and we need this for the environment, which I'm like all for, super hyper conscious about the environment. But then you bring up nuclear and they're like, no, never mind. It's like, why? It'll solve all the problem you just mentioned. So, yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out the spider on Leo's shirt. So I don't think it's a pest control company though.
Nope, just a brand.
Oh, all right. Well, let's move on. Speaking of trash, let's talk about this. So this was a lab in I want to say Minnesota, a college in Minnesota, that they actually had an issue with. Let me find it. Here we go. So no funding, no lab, no problem for dogged University of Minnesota students. So they didn't have funding. They didn't have, a lot of universities will, they'll get a grant and they'll get to study something. And, hey, we're all about SBIR stuff. And we've had a lot of people benefit from that and actually take stuff and bring it to market. But sometimes, universities will get grants to work on stuff and then sometimes they won't. And then sometimes if they don't, then it's like, oh, well, what are we going to do now? I guess we won't do the project. Well, these students decided to do something very different. So they literally, it looks like they went dumpster diving for parts and pieces, and they were using their own hands. So this was a project. It was a biomedical engineering project at the University of Minnesota. Small group of undergraduates, and they created a new medical device from scratch. They had a painful condition called Raynaud's phenomenon, which causes blood vessels to contract, decreasing circulation, including cold weather. So, it can turn your fingers and toes white or blue. It's just, I guess, a bad thing, especially in Minnesota.
I thought that was a genetic thing. Yeah, I've heard of that. Weird.
So they were working on a device, not a drug, that would actually treat or prevent these uncomfortable symptoms. And so they looked at the possibility of some light therapy, and but they had to they didn't have any developed treatment for humans yet. So they created this new technology, and there was no formal funding and no formal lab to work in because they were undergraduate students, and so they were going to make it work anyway. And so we're going to scrounge. So they were scrounging the technology from different places. They were actually, I want to say and I love this, is in the beginning, we were looking for components so we could Frankenstein things together. So they literally built a Frankentype here. So they bit by bit, they built their first prototype, then the next, and they ended up looking a little bit like toaster ovens, but hey, they were proving to themselves that they could do it. So anyway, I just kind of tip my hat to these guys for dumpster diving when you don't have funding, you don't have all the special stuff, but you actually can have a project and be successful with it, which is what looks like they did. So what do you think? Can you dumpster dive and come up with a product?
I think they had a vision And I think they had an idea that they felt strongly about, so it was easy for them to dumpster dive. So I think that's at the core of the entrepreneur, is like if you have something and you believe in it and you have that vision, uh nothing else matters.
Hmm.
And of course you always have to put a check on that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it sounds like they did have a vision or an idea. They had the kernel, that kernel that you latch on to as an entrepreneur, and then you just follow it. And I think that's why the rest of their story, they executed on it.
Yeah. And funny enough, I heard a dumpster diving story this week. That was actually after I found this article, which was kind of hilarious. And he was telling the story about how, like, and don't do this at home, kids, but he was because he wasn't, well, he'd asked them before, hey, can I, you've got, they were making foam products, and he needed foam for a specific application. And this place just made all kinds of foam, and they had an old dumpster full of the stuff that they weren't using. And so he asked them, and they said, yeah, sure, go check. And then he went out there, and then I guess he didn't find what he wanted, or he needed to come back for more. And he came back another day, and I guess the same people weren't there. And they caught him red-handed, we're bringing you into the office here because what are you doing here? And of course, then he's kind of telling the story of that. He was telling the story that hey, I was in here before, blah blah blah. And then they said, oh well, here, let me take you to the back room here where we've got the real good stuff that we're getting ready to throw away. And then he like had a haul. Yeah, he had a big haul of stuff. So yeah, it's you'd be amazed what you can get sometimes if you either ask nicely or one trick I used to use a lot was we would I'd call a company. And, again, we were this little company, and, we were calling companies that were saying, yes, so how many trailer truckloads of this component can you sign us up for? And we're like, well, we're just starting out with this product. And so we're starting out, but I said we're starting out with this product. And we, what we'd really like to do is get a sample to test. And I was just wondering, maybe we could get a price, pricing for when, what's your minimum quantity price, and when, and can we get a sample to evaluate? Sometimes they'd send us like, there was one joke because we got all these samples in one time, and like filled up a room in the building, and it was just like
You
all
just wanted
three
to-
samples because I just kept calling these places. And when we were evaluating, but some of the times you can get enough samples to turn into a small run. And but yeah, I think you can dumpster dive as long as you don't get arrested. So what do you think, Drew?
Oh, yeah, I 100% I think that this is the beginning of sales, right? As I remember, I was not a sales guy. I'm still not a really big sales guy, but I'm learning that it's a necessary evil, right? And as I've gotten into it more, I realize that sales is really me finding out what my customer needs and then communicating to them that I have a solution for them more than I need you. I think we've all been in the pressure of sales, right? Where it's like, so dumpster diving is the first part of sales, right? Like when you're doing large scale sales of any sort, you are like, I remember spending 2 days coming through Google, like Google Maps. Like, I'm marketing these people. So I roughly said the size of business that I need would have a building. And so if you have a building, I'm going to find your address. I'm going to look at your website. And then when I call you up, so when you're building your product first, you are jumping into the mess, and then you are pulling order out of mess. And when you're doing sales, that's what you're doing. When you're doing marketing, when you're writing copy, what we do as inventors is pulling order out of mess. Now, I have gotten to a spot where I thankfully don't have to dumpster dive nearly as often. I remember the last project I did with one of my kids, we were watching a YouTube do-it-yourself little stove for a hunting cabin. And I could have bought one on eBay, not on eBay, on Amazon for like $169. So $250 worth of material later, I still don't have a working stove. Right. So there is something to be said for just stinking buy it. Because you get what you want and you don't have to clean it up and it works and looks pretty. Like rock, like buy a 2x4. But if you just need a housing and a bunch of pallet wood works, there are people that have to let's say that I'm a bottling company. I have to get rid of my pallets, like the bad pallets. I have to pay a waste company to get rid of them. You can 100% get all the pallets you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100, if it's not directly dumpster diving, reaching out to people that whose trash, that this is not entrepreneurship, but my kids at school, they wanted to have a Nerf gun fight. So I went to a furniture friend of mine, he has a furniture store, and we got like 6 truckloads of couch boxes.
Oh, wow.
And we put them in the gym and we had a ball. Now, it was like every week, every evening for 3 weeks or for a week in a row, getting the boxes and transporting them, then I throw them away. But 100% people are happy to get rid of their trash.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of trash that you can use to make your prototypes with.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. That's why I like calling them Frankentypes. You've
Yeah.
snuck out to the graveyard of broken products and spare parts. You've used glue sticks and duct tape and
Oh, yeah.
ugly as all get out, but you've just got to prove it to one person, that's yourself. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so cool. All right. Let's see. All right. One more here. So have they developed a Terminator robot for slugs? And this is a strange one, guys. So this is, we get here and so this is they call it the Slugbot project. This actually goes back to 2001. I thought, okay, this is an old project, but apparently it's still around. So, artificial intelligence. And again, I thought, okay, this is awful early, 2001. From California Institute debuted 2001 and promised to crawl all over soil looking for slugs with a light. When it spotted one, it would pick it up at the invaders, store it. Bacteria inside the Slugbot digested the slugs, which would then be used as an organic power source for the machine.
Oh, no.
All right. So yes, it runs on slugs. I'm not gonna play this whole video, but there's just a little bit of a video here where they're kind of showing on. Oh wait, I don't have the sound. So it's gonna say, oh yeah, there it is. There it is in action.
Oh, it's
So
a lot scarier looking too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. That's
run, little slugs,
Yeah.
run. So what do you think, guys? Is this harbinger of
yeah, it's
things to come?
gonna
or-
start eating people soon. Yeah. Oh man.
Only people of the right political persuasion. I'm not inferring which way that is. I'm just saying it's a small leap.
Oh, goodness. So, yeah, you think this is a good idea? I don't know. I don't know that much about slugs. I guess they're a bad thing and
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, you need them in a certain balance, and there's a lot of, especially like, okay, I will say, if this thing was in Florida and it was going after giant African snails and invasive species like that, I could kind of put the ick factor on pause for the fact that it's a machine that eats animals. But barring that, like for regular pests, it's like, haven't you just use cans of beer? That's the traditional. That's what you do. You take a can of beer, you pour it out till it's like an ounce, and you let them drown in it. The end. Oof. That's all I got.
What do you think, guys?
Well, I'll take it and then I want to hear your thoughts. So my brother is into homesteading. Like he has
Same. I wrote a book on it.
It's cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. He's an engineer and he does way more thinking homesteading than he did when he was an engineer.
Wow.
And one of the cool things that they talk about doing now is like you can have your chickens in this free range like movable pen,
Oh, yeah.
and
Love
then you
those.
can put your chickens in runs. It's another variation of the same thing. But put your chickens on runs and they run past your garden and they'll like pick the bugs off. So
And eggs taste better.
yeah,
Yeah.
free range chicken. So there is a cool like that is the mechanical. I just want to make this mechanical. But there's some really, really cool ways to biohack your own small farm. Like there's another one that's pretty cool called the black soldier fly system. So you put a tub like on an angle like this, and you fill it full of coffee grounds, and you do a couple other things,
Compost.
and it biohacks the flies like to lay their eggs. The larva climbs up the coffee grounds and then self harvests, and because it's the larvae's program makes them want to makes them want to climb up and then find soil. And so you get all these, like it produces a large amount of protein.
Yep.
Which then you feed to your chicken.
There's actually a guy who's got a YouTube channel and he's monetized his black soldier flies. Not only does he sell them as chicken feed, but he literally feeds them random things and people pay, well, they sponsors and stuff to watch. It's like, how long is it going to take for this box of bagels to get eaten by the black soldier fly? So yeah, it's like a popular channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of, I think this is kind of throwing technology at a problem to prove that you had a master's thesis. Or it's like, probably could have turned loose some, whatever eats slugs in that area.
Again, beer. Just
Again,
they
beer.
drown in beer. They love beer. They can't swim. End of story. So
They love beer. They
They
can't
can't swim.
swim.
Now, having said that, and I've not made one of these, but I send this to my brother every time it comes across my Facebook. There is a CNC machine for gardening. So you put rails on the side of your raised bed garden and it like pokes the right depth hole and then like drops a seed and then
trippy.
covers it over and then like spritzes it with the right amount of liquid every
wow.
day. So like this thing
Weird.
is just like this big gantry and it's going up and down. And
Wow.
whether or not it's practical, I desperately want one.
It's
They-
cool.
Stevie's,
dang cool.
what do they
CNC
call it?
gardener.
Yeah,
Weird.
CNC
CNC.
gardener. And you
CNC
there's like
gardener.
software and you can like put in your peas and
Yeah.
I
See, to
love
me,
that.
that takes the fun out of it, but I get it. You do you.
yeah. No, I agree it's cheating. Like
Yeah,
It's like a machine that goes fishing for you.
it's exactly like that.
It's a sub that's heat seeks fisher.
Right.
Oh, well, it's kind of neat because it's and really, I think you're right. I think, okay, they're hammering, everything's a nail to this technology and this machine. And it's like, no, we could use animal husbandry and ingenuity and innovation and make it a nice viable system.
Yeah.
And
What's your take on it, Kirk?
Well, as presented, I thought it was a very scary looking machine and the story's a little scary. I guess if it was a crop and there was a certain specific use case for it, it might work. I can't picture that out in front of like my neighbor's house, picking slugs out of the front yard or something like that. But maybe, maybe with all the AI and the robots and whatnot we're getting, maybe something could eventually do more than just slugs. Maybe it could do your whole yard. Maybe it could do all types of pests. Maybe if it was intelligent, I mean, maybe it's not going to eat and consume the slugs and power itself that way. But if it could, whatever your particular pain point is at your house, if that thing could take care of the ants and the slugs and everything else, and it was smart enough to do it all, which we're headed that way, then something might be attractive.
That's a good point. I would take a scary animal eating robot over like Roundup that just indiscriminately
Yeah.
kills anything.
Yeah, and
Roundup is horrible.
Yeah, oh yeah.
yeah.
how it maybe if it just picks them all and puts them in a bucket or something like that, be nice. And I would love one. I
Bucket
know
of beer.
I would love one. Yeah, and it makes beer, but I would love one that could get mosquitoes. No, we talk
yeah.
about, they had the little laser.
Wasn't
thing
there
on.
somebody
I would
here
love
in
mosquitoes.
Kentucky that
Have
was
you
doing
seen-
something with that?
I saw one it had a sensor that was sweeped around like an AA gun. It was like somebody put this on so it's an Arduino board, little sensor that it's spinning around and then has a laser that's like zapping.
And they've had this for a while, but I never see them. I never see them like for the customer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe they're using red lasers and it's blinding people versus green that's safe or something.
Lasers be blind people, like.
Yeah, the greens might be safe, but it might not. If
Yeah.
I would love to see something that could do that too.
If you promise not to tell my wife, like this eye is a little less.
Uh,
It's a
Fun with lasers. Oh, yeah, I keep thinking of that, what was that robot that went berserk in RoboCop?
Oh yeah. I don't know its name, but I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, it's like, identify yourself.
It's funny. There's actually a game, a post-apocalyptic game where people have to fight robots called Zero Dawn, and one of them, I swear to God, looks like the Slug robot. It looks almost just
Really?
like it. It's weird. it's almost like they got inspiration from it.
You think maybe they did?
Maybe. It looks a little too similar, frankly. Yeah, no, I'm good on that.
Yeah, it's getting slugs out of your lawn and then
Yeah.
it's coming up to your cat and saying, identify yourself. You have 30 seconds. So, all right. Okay. Well, with that, let's talk a little bit about the black investing.
All right.
box. Yeah.
Black
yeah.
investing box, goodness gracious. Okay.
So, tell us the story. How'd you come up with this?
Yeah, so it all started, it was a dark and stormy night. No, I hated saving money when I was a kid. I don't know. Like we had the envelope system and to me, it's a little Drew. This is the way you learn that you take your money and divide it up into arbitrary envelopes. That doesn't matter because I'm going to put them all when I want ice cream later anyway. And then you get this one special envelope called the save envelope, and then you just burn that one. Like, and that was my financial education. That was it. My parents tried hard, but I never understood the idea of savings because I'm like, I would want to employ all of my capital all of the time. Arguably on things that I want, not on things that are useful. But my dad had a business, and then I got into engineering, and I got up into management, and I was like, when am I going to learn about money? Like nobody talks about money. And so if you were going to teach your kid about basketball, right? We live in a bit of a basketball region. Would you give your kid an Excel sheet and ask him to keep stats on all the players, or would you give him a ball? You give him a ball, right? And then would you be like, okay, well, you have a ball, but it's regulation size ball, and you can't dribble or you can't walk, right? You have to dribble perfectly, and I'm going to swat it in your face every time you take a shot, and it's on a 10-foot hoop. Like, no, we're not carnies. Like we're the opposite. We'd shrink the hoop, and I coached a little upward basketball, little league basketball for a while, right? And that's what we do. We break all the rules so that they can have a success, right? So looking at my kids, I'm like, I don't want you to have the money experience that I did. I certainly don't want you to live the standard life, which is 60K in debt, from college, whatever. So I said, instead of, I just kind of did this. I said, instead of me giving you chores or me giving you a piggy bank or doing the envelope system, here's a box. And if you put your money in here, I'll give you a quarter on every dollar that you leave in the box all week. It's your money. You can spend it whenever you want. And you get a quarter on it if you leave it in. So, right. So that's what started the black investing box. So it's called the quarterly report. I think that's funny. So the kids, you take them, I started my kids, they were about 5, put it in the box, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then being an engineer, I said, well, we're going to have to start graphing things pretty quickly. So this is the quarterly report chart. So it has little, yeah. So they can like use a marker and fill out, this is how much principal I have, and they get a quarter for every dollar. So I'm teaching them graphing, and that becomes useful later because they can now, so they, let's say they wanted to buy a water bottle. I don't know why a kid wants to buy water, but they wanted to buy a water bottle. Let's say that it cost $10. It's very, very expensive. Some liquid death is what they wanted. So they'd mark it here. They start with $4, and they start every week. We just go through this little ritual of quarterly report. First week, second week, they don't care. The third week, they get $2. They're like, why did I get $2? But they're physically doing all this stuff, and they're graphing. So then eventually they get up to the spot where they can buy their toy, their Lego set. And then I say to them, so the first learning is when they're like, oh, I get $2. And they start asking themselves, well, when will I get $3? So they're now invested in this idea. So then at some point they have enough money, they can go buy the thing. And so this is the second moment of learning. As I said, let's go buy it. I said, but wait a minute, one more question. If you spend all your principal, what will you get in interest next week? And they go, none. And you're like, yep. And they're like, is that true? I'm like, that's how that works. And then I say, well, what if you just waited 1 week? And so then I made another graph because I'm an engineer.
Nice.
And so this is the compound interest chart.
Oh, wow.
And so they now they have a tool. They don't even know it's graphing. They're just drawing. And they can figure out how many weeks it takes until eventually they figure out, wait a minute, if I wait 3 or 4 more weeks, then I could just get a Lego set in interest. That means I could get a Lego set every week. That's called retirement, and you are correct. Right?
Wow.
And so now, literally at 5, 6 years old, they understand more financial stuff than adults do today.
Wow.
So then a bunch of other fun things happen. Like the reason I knew that it worked was that, so they get up to $100 and now dad's shelling out $25 a week. That's not what dad wants to do. So I just reduce the interest. And so as their principal keeps growing, I keep reducing their interest until they have no interest. So again, this is like, I'm taking the goal and I'm setting it up to 10 feet. And
Yeah.
I'm giving them the real size ball and I'm calling them on when they walk.
Mhm.
But they've been playing the game the whole time. They can buy, I mean, we have a lot of Legos, but they get it. And like, so I know it at work in this one story. My daughter comes to me at 9 years old and she goes, Dad, I wish I understood money better when I was younger. It's like, oh, do tell. She goes, you remember when I was on the dime report, 10 cents, and my brothers were on the quarterly report? It's like, yeah. She goes, the bank only wants, I didn't realize it, but the bank only wants 6% per year. So I could have gone to the bank and borrowed like $200 and then given it to my brothers and then we could have split the interest,
Oh,
right?
hack the system.
Right?
Yeah.
So my current 9-year-old comes up to me and she goes, well, the siblings told me that when I get to $100, you're moving me down to the dime report. So if I just keep spending my principal so that I stay at like $95 while I still keep getting a quarter, I was like, yes.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
negotiating.
keep an eye on her.
But she earned it.
Oh,
She
she
earned
Doing
it.
some
Yeah.
impressive things. with
So,
Yeah.
so my kid, and then it rolls over, like, so my daughter, she's my older daughter, likes this boy who's not, he has some characteristics that I don't think will serve well in a husband relationship. And so we talk about, all right, you're spending time with this guy. Where are you not spending time? So we're talking about getting a good return on the time that she's spending, right? So it's really it's more than just money. The concept of compound interest is, I think that we all hustle. We all entrepreneurs and inventors are always spending all of our spare capital, build something, a little nugget, right? And then we go on to the next thing. And we need to learn to build something that's worth building so that when it works, like long term, it's worth having. And that's a compound interest idea. So that's the story about how the box works. And there's a couple, I'll show one more other, there's a bunch of other little things. This one is, so we don't have chores at our house, we have opportunities. So if you want more money in your box, go get me an opportunity contract, write me a contract. So now we're doing terms and scope and due dates, right? And the kids get this at like, I mean, I have to write them off the time, but like the kids get this at like 6, right? And they're learning to see that life is full of opportunities. And the other one I'll show you that I'll show you 2 more. How are we doing on time? You okay?
No,
Yeah, this is great.
Okay. So this one is my favorite. It's called the definite major purpose. So every week our kids, in addition to getting their money and their opportunity, so they have to use these words. My principal was, interest was, I earned this through my contracts. So they're starting to do cash flow analysis, right? That's what they're doing. So the definite major purpose is they have to choose something that takes longer than a day to accomplish. Now, for a 5-year-old, that's one thing. For a 15-year-old, that's another thing.
Sure.
So then they have to give me a 4-day plan on what they're going to do. So like I had my boys at 9, we were ripping apart Nerf guns and resoldering them. And we started doing it. There's a Nerf gun place in Lexington and we repaired a bunch of their guns for them and we got to play for free.
Nice.
So we would take 2 guns home every week. We'd strip them apart. We'd find the problem. We'd fix it. And the boys were doing this, not me. And
Nerf Smiths.
Nerf Smiths. right?
Nerf Smith, I love
And,
it.
so at first I made them watch the video 5 times and then they had to explain to me what they needed. Then they had to make a shopping list. We had to go buy them. So this is not just like goal setting. This is long range planning.
Yeah,
And again, I had my 6-year-olds, my 5-year-olds do this, right?
almost like project management.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now that they're older, they're 15, 14 and 16. They want to start a lawn mowing business. I'm like, well, go give me your definite major purpose for the week. And they lay out a week-long plan.
Wow.
They're 15 and 16-year-olds. They resist it.
Of course.
But they can do it, right? So this is the other fun one. And this one of my kids got into this. The other ones didn't really like this, but I give them a quarter that goes in their principal. This is a business analysis. So you draw the logo and then you say, how many people came and buy like a hamburger or whatever? How many people come back? How much do you think they make in profit per hamburger? Oh, how do people find them? Like what's their marketing? And then this is psychographics, which is why do people buy from them? Are they a monopoly? It's because they look cool. They have the best performance. These are just Porter's differentiators. So for a quarter, I'm having we go out to McDonald's and we have a piece of ice cream and we talk about how much do you think that ice cream made of? Or they sell us, we came for ice cream, but we also bought fries. That's called a bundle. Right? So I have one for relationships as well, which is kind of based on the 5 love languages. And then the last one is lessons learned. So they do a death of major purpose. Obviously they fail at something. So I dialogue with them. And then like one time my daughter wanted to have a cake decorating party with her best friend. Mom said no. So Wednesday I'm like, hey, I haven't seen any progress here. Well, mom said no. Well, why did mom say no? So now she's negotiating with mom. So they end up having a Kroger cupcake party at the park because mom doesn't want her house to be messy.
Oh.
Her lesson learned for that week was sometimes when mom says no, you can get it to be a yes anyway. Right? That's what goes in her piggy bank.
Wow.
So the lessons learned are the only things that go in the piggy bank.
Nice.
So that's the Black Investing Box. And
Nice.
So where are you with that? Where can we get that? Or what's the?
the blackinvestingbox.com. And
Cool.
and if we sell it for $100, which is an investment. Because we're watching this show, we'll set up a code and I'll get it to you guys
All
for
right.
do $75.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
25% off. All
Yeah,
right.
and I'll give you I'll set up the code and then we'll do a digital download as well. So you guys can have the little coupons.
Cool.
Nice.
Thank
Um,
you.
Very cool.
The next stage of the thing, this is the characters. This is
Oh.
this is King Cassius, because Cash is king, and his
Uh,
and his son Prince Ebel, it's a principal, and his sister Allocation. And,
allocation.
Allocation, and their brother Roy, just returning investment. So
I
they
love it.
have adventures in this land called vesting, and so we're writing those books right now.
That's fun.
That is
Like it.
really.
That is
that's-
trippy.
So what do you think was the hardest part for the whole process for you so far?
So yeah, so taking the veil back, right? I had this idea, which was the Black Investing Box, right? And I had the quarterly report, and I made a chart. So essentially, without all the prettiness, this is what I had, right?
Yep.
Logistics wise, I priced it all out. It's gonna be $20. And then I was gonna have to ship it for $8 or $9, right? So now I'm having to make a $50 product, and I'm trying to sell these things. So coming up with other things to fill the value stack, like that was difficult. It's saying, okay, what else can I put in here? And then keep. So you kind of have this price spot where you're like, it's only worth it. I have to get this price to make it worth my time.
Sure.
So then you have to add more value to it. So like these things have a certain margin on them, right? So let's say that they're a 50% margin. So if I want to make it worth your time to get it, I got to stuff more things into the.
Sure.
You can get into. All right, so Michael Porter talks about differentiators, right? You can be the value leader, which is I'm the cheapest, or you can be the premier, which says you buy me for status and not for function, or you can be performance. So you have Kia, Mercedes, and Audi. Like I went to a car show and I talked to my buddy, and I was like, he loves his Audi, and I was like, hey Jim, I noticed that there's no Audis at this car show. He goes, yeah, that's because Audi drivers are driving them. That's a real psychographic, right? That's a real.
Yeah.
I don't get it I wanted it because I wanted to drive it. So I wanted it to be a premium product because it's always easier to add value than it is to manufacture cheaper. So the next thing I did to make it more valuable was, this is a mailer box, right? Is I had to come up with the art.
Sure.
So this is not all of it, but a lot of this is AI art. So like the coin stack, like if you kind of like look at, you're like, oh wait a minute, those aren't really coins. They're just kind of like you can tell that they're AI,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But AI was the enabler, because otherwise I was gonna have to spend $5,000 on somebody to design my box for me.
Sure.
So I had to learn how to use Canva. I already was
Flipping
in
loves
love.
Canva.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time I use it, I love it more.
Yep.
And then but getting the art, right? what makes something prestige is art, essentially. So making this look like a leather folder,
Mhm.
making the form design, um, those were probably the hardest. They took the longest. Sourcing it was like, and then once you get the art, you got to make it fit. So I went to Vistaprint first, and that was kind of it was a pain. I got a first run. I was like, oh, sweet. I like this. But then I had to, you essentially have to resource everything to try to get a better price.
Yeah.
So I have a house in Lexington that does my shipping for me. So I just send them an email and I don't have to pick and place. I don't have to store. I don't have to sort. It's just done for me. It's fantastic. But it was,
Nice.
I mean, multiple trips to multiple places to negotiate supply chain.
Yep.
That was probably the hardest. Yeah.
What do you think helped you the most? If I can give you the best boost to get to where you are now.
AI. AI. Yeah. Because I could not have done this.
Yeah.
Again, the core of this product, there's a mechanic, right? There's a game mechanic. But the game mechanic had to be pretty. And so as an engineer, pretty is not what I do for a living, right? I do functional.
Right.
But functional is not a premier product. And there's some level, if you guys remember websites in I guess 1996 or something, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like it was like a list and it was like blue on blue. I mean, it was terrible, but it was a website. Well, today you have to be pretty. Like there's a certain level of website that if you don't have that, you don't have nothing.
Yeah.
You might as well
Oh,
have even done it.
absolutely. And there's still some 1997-esque. I mean, I'll pull some websites up sometime. I'll say, 1997 called.
Yeah.
They want their website.
They want
back.
their website.
Yeah.
So I made my website. Actually, I'm not really super happy with my website. It is functional. Like you can put a credit card in there and I can get your email and address and I can send you a box, which is all I needed.
Right.
But it took me 30 hours minimum. And I wish that somebody, well, actually, I'm glad that nobody said, but I wish that somebody had told me it's going to cost you 30 hours to design the box. It's going to cost you 10 or 15 hours per ones of these. Because after you make it, then you have to pretty it, then you have to proof it, then you have to send that graphic to the printer, then you have to check it. It's non-trivial how long it takes.
Yeah.
And
like
you and April in the same room, because I bet you she's got some other avenues too.
Yeah.
yeah. So when you're designing something to sell, you have to like Frankensteining of it takes a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
It takes about as much time. Like this is an 8-page book and I had to write every page of it and I had to place the person in the right spot on the page. And all of those things matter just as much as the physical
Oh, yeah.
gear matters. This
Mhm.
matters, right? So, yeah, I think that the hardest thing was packaging it. The enabler was all of the good looking graphics came from AI. Yep.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Kudos.
Congratulations.
That's
I should
And-
make that mandatory for every parent and kid.
well, yeah,
That-
that ought to be like
I wish
in
that's what
school
happened to me.
curriculums
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
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 Yeah, totally. So if anybody that's on the show, if you have access to a private school administrator, I would love to pitch it to the PTAs or just
yeah.
pitch it at PTA meetings
Absolutely.
or school board meetings or whatever.
Mhm.
And if you have a group of folks, like, so actually funny, I thought I was going to sell this with financial advisors. I thought that like, instead of sending out a mug for Christmas, that financial advisors would send this out. And I went and talked to them and they said to me, 3 people in a row, I won't say who they are because I don't want them to be embarrassed, but essentially said the business model of a financial advisor is to make the sale and then to keep their face buried in the stock market to take care of your money.
Yeah.
But so let's say Don, like, so I'm a financial advisor, you gave me all your money, I'm getting 2% on your portfolio, I'm in the stock market all the time. And then you want to ask me about how to get your kids to fill out a box? Like that's a 30-minute conversation. It's distracting me from either the website or getting another customer.
Yeah.
So my client is not a financial advisor. Trying to find some banks. I think the banks might be financial, like, because their business is different than a financial advisor's.
Mhm.
But the reason I tell that story is not to poo-poo financial advisors. They're legitimately doing their job, which is
Right.
taking care of my money.
It just wasn't.
But it's to point out that what I thought
Mhm.
was not the reality of the market
Yeah.
dynamics. And you got to go talk to people.
Yeah. I mean, everybody starts out at a guessing point of, I think this will be my customer. And usually where most of us are wrong. And we find that out, after we start talking to a lot of people. So
Yeah.
So wonderful, wonderful. Oh, we are,
Okay. I'm getting nudged.
all right. Well, cool. All right. Well, congratulations on the product and, let's give everybody, let's give
Love, absolutely.
All right.
Fantastic. Sign me up.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. Do we have any questions?
Anybody got any questions? Put it in the chat or feel free to raise your hands. And likewise, all you folks on YouTube, feel free to put it into the live chat.
And in the meantime, let's touch on Kirk, because Kirk's got a new product announcement.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, mini grip's been out for a while, and one of the only complaints or wishes that we had on Amazon in our reviews is that some of our customers wanted a larger mini grip. So we've come out with the mini grip XL. And so that's what we're doing now. So it's going well. I think
cool.
sold half of our first batch from the factory, and just going well.
That is so cool. Yeah, I can't wait to try mine. I've got a lot of jars I want.
So can you talk us through the design process and then the manufacturing process of that?
Sure.
Like how you got the sourced it and
So the original mini grip was conceived over about a 1 year period, and kind of during COVID. So we found a sourcing company that had relationships overseas, and that's how I was able to source it. The first mold, though, was produced in the US. I found a company that could do it here, and it cost me 10 times what it cost me overseas to do. But that was used to produce our first prototypes and our MVP, and so it was worth it at the time. For the larger mini grip, I had already had the concepts down. I have a background in engineering and CAD, so I was able to do the CAD, for myself. The larger mini grip does have extra grooves for your hand on the hand side, and it has extra grooves that are oriented radially for the side that goes on the container. So there was a little bit of prototyping there and a little bit of 3D printing going on to develop the prototypes. The first mini grip, I think, took 3, and this one took 2. And so then after that, I was ready to send the design to the factory, and they produced like a first mold for a couple $100. And then once that was approved, we went to production. So
Nice. Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
I think you should tell everybody quick what you use the mini grip for, if they're not familiar with it.
So mini grip is it's a portable twist top opener. It's used to open any kind of hard to open twist top container bottle. The small one's designed to be portable, so it's kind of, where are we these days when we open containers? We're not always in the kitchen, and so sometimes you get caught and you need a little extra grip. So you could be in a car, keep it in your purse, at the airport, on the soccer field, wherever you're opening those containers. I find each person has their own favorite drink or their own nemesis, and the next person, they don't have any problem with that container, they have another problem with another container. So different people use it differently. Some people use it in the washroom, some people in the kitchen.
I just want to use it to get those produce bags open
Oh,
at the
gosh,
grocery
yeah.
store.
Like
Yeah.
to open.
There was a comedian telling jokes that he was playing a role as a demon, and he's like, my friend, he got promoted for coming up with that.
How to open it.
Yeah.
Well, I use mini grip to open all the plastic safety seals that have the little perforated dots on them.
Oh,
And that the shrink wrap,
Mhm.
any kind of bottle like that, you can just use the mini grip to open that.
Nice.
Wine sleeves, anything like
Oh,
that. So I don't
nice.
spend time I just rips it right off.
wow.
Yeah, and it works on wine sleeves too. So you don't have to cut the sleeve before you pull the
Right.
cork.
So what's the best place to buy a mini grip?
Myminigrip.com and also Amazon.com if you want to go there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Any parting thoughts other than that?
No,
Oh, all right.
I'm definitely interested in the box. So
Yeah, absolutely. Where can you get, again, tell everybody where they can get.
Yeah, where can I buy this? The Black Investing Box.
It's at theblackinvestingbox.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
And when
All
you go
right.
to the website, understand it's strictly functional.
That's all right. Hey, we gotta love you for who you are, right? Right now.
You can
That's
love me
all
at my
right.
worst.
Yeah. If they love you now, they'll love you forever. So, all right, cool. All right, I guess that about wraps it up for tonight. Our next open meeting, well, we've got a workshop next week. So if you're a member, you definitely get an invite to the workshop. If you're not a member, well, you can become one by coming to our website, and that's kyinventors.org. Other than that, our next open meeting is on June the 4th. Stay tuned. Watch your email inboxes because we'll be talking about that really soon. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. We really do appreciate it. And we will see you all next time.
Have a good
Nice.
weekend, everybody. Thanks for attending, and thanks you guys for being here.
Thanks for
Great.
having